I almost stamped her deposit slip without reading the note. 1 second more, and I might have sent her back out to the man waiting with a gun. Her hands were steady, but her eyes weren't. They kept flicking past my shoulder, toward the glass doors behind me. The bank was quiet for a Tuesday afternoon. A couple of elderly customers, a man filling out a form, nothing that screamed danger. Nothing except the tiny folded paper she slid under her ID. "Please process quickly," she said, her voice calm, too calm. I nodded like it was just another routine transaction. My fingers moved on autopilot, counting cash, scanning her account, but my eyes dropped to the note. "Call police. My husband is outside with a gun." For a second, everything inside me went silent. I didn't look up. Training kicks in when panic wants to take over. You don't react. You don't alarm. You breathe, and you think. "Is this all for today?" I asked, forcing my voice to stay smooth. She gave the slightest nod. I pressed the silent alarm under the counter. It felt too small for what was happening. Just a soft click, no sound, no flashing lights. But somewhere it sent a message that something was wrong. I needed police. For her. For myself. I said, frowning at the screen, "There seems to be a hold on your account. It might take a few minutes to verify." Her eyes met mine for the first time. She understood. A flicker of relief passed through her, so fast I almost missed it. "That's fine," she whispered. I picked up the phone, pretending to call a supervisor. My heart was beating so loud I was sure everyone could hear it. "Hey, I need assistance at counter 3, I said casually. Account verification. That was code, not official, not written anywhere, but we all knew it. My supervisor would come over, assess, and stall if needed. I glanced past her, toward the glass doors, and then I saw him, standing outside, hands in his jacket pockets, watching. Not pacing, not nervous, just waiting. That was the worst part. He looked patient. I turned my attention back to her. "Do you have any other form ID?" I asked, buying more seconds. Her lips trembled just slightly. "No. It's okay," I said softly, just loud enough for her to hear. "We'll figure it out." My supervisor arrived beside me, all smiles. "What seems to be the issue?" I slid the note toward her while pretending to show the screen. Her expression didn't change, but her hand pressed lightly on the counter, a silent signal that she understood. "We just need a bit more time," she said, nodding. "Time. That's all we needed." The man outside shifted slightly, stepping closer to the door. My chest tightened. He wasn't just waiting anymore. He was watching us. I forced myself to keep moving, to keep acting normal, counting bills again, typing, smiling at another customer who walked in, completely unaware of the storm sitting just beyond the glass. Minutes felt like hours. And then, finally I heard it, sirens, distant at first, then closer. The man outside stiffened, his head turned slightly, listening. For a moment, I thought he might run, but he didn't. He stepped toward the door instead. My stomach dropped. The door opened. He walked in. Everything slowed. He scanned the room, his eyes locking onto her instantly, then onto me. I felt it that moment when he realized something wasn't right. My supervisor stepped forward casually. "Sir, can I help you answer?" His hand moved inside his jacket, and then the doors burst open again, loud, fast, controlled. "Sir," hands where we can see them. The entire bank froze. The man hesitated for just a fraction of a second. Then his hands slowly came out empty. They pulled him down anyway, cuffed him, searched him. And then they found it. A gun. Hidden exactly where the note said it would be. The woman in front of me didn't move. She didn't cry. She just stood there, her shoulders finally dropping, like she had been holding the weight of the world on them. I leaned closer, my voice barely a whisper. "You're safe now." That's when her composure cracked. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet tear sliding down her cheek. "I thought," she started, then stopped. I nodded. "I know. The police took him out." The tension drained from the room slowly, like air leaking from a balloon. People started whispering. Someone asked what happened. Someone else said they saw everything. But I stayed right there with her. She looked at me again, really looked this time. "You believed me," she said. It wasn't a question. I thought about that tiny piece of paper. How easy it would have been to miss. To ignore. "I read your note," I said simply. She let out a shaky breath. "He said if I told anyone." She didn't finish. She didn't need to. I slid her ID back to her, along with the note. "You don't need this anymore." She took it, her fingers brushing mine. "Thank you." I watched her walk out of the bank, not toward him, not toward fear, but toward something else. Something quieter, something stronger. Freedom doesn't always come with noise. Sometimes it comes in silence. Sometimes it's just a folded piece of paper. And someone choosing to read it. I didn't realize until later that the note wasn't just a cry for help. It was the beginning of the end for him. After the police took him away, the bank slowly returned to normal. Customers whispered, phones came out, managers started filling out reports. But I couldn't shake the look in her eyes before she left. It wasn't just fear. It was something deeper, like she had already decided something long before she walked into my line. A week passed. Then too. Life went back to routine, counting cash, stamping forms, smiling at strangers. But every time the doors opened, a small part of me expected to see her again. And then one afternoon she walked back in. Different. Same face, same quiet presence, but something had shifted. Her shoulders were straight now. Her steps steady. No flicking eyes, no trembling hands. She came to my counter. She said softly. It took me a second to respond. I wanted to thank you, she added. You already did? I said. You're safe. That's enough. She smiled slightly. Not yet. That caught my attention. I leaned in just a little. What do you mean? She placed another piece of paper on the counter. Not a secret note this time, just a document. Official, stamped. A restraining order. And beneath it something else. A list. Dates. Times. Incidents. Every bruise. Every threat. Every moment she had stayed silent. I started writing everything down months ago, she said quietly. I knew one day I'd need proof. I felt something shift inside me. This wasn't just survival. This was strategy. He always thought I was too scared to do anything. She continued. That I'd never leave. Never speak. And that day, I asked. She glanced at the door. The same door he had walked through. He told me it was over, she said. That if I tried to leave, he'd make sure I didn't get the chance again. My jaw tightened. So you came here, I said. She nodded. Because I knew two things. He'd follow me and I wouldn't be alone inside. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she tapped the list gently. This is just the beginning. What else is there? I asked. Her lips curved into a faint, controlled smile. Not cruel. Not angry. Certain. He's being charged for the weapon, she said. Threats. Attempted intimidation. I nodded. That's good. It's not enough, she replied. There was no hesitation in her voice now. He has accounts, she continued. Money he hid. Transfers he made in other people's names. I know where it all is. I blinked. You? I handled everything, she said simply. Bills. Documents, taxes. He never paid attention. He never thought I mattered enough to notice. And there it was. The real revenge. Not loud, not messy. Precise. What are you going to do? I asked. She met my eyes. I already did it. A chill ran through me. I reported everything, she said. To the bank. To the authorities. Fraud investigations are already open. I let out a slow breath. So even if he gets out, he won't have anything left, she finished. No anger, no satisfaction in her tone. Just truth. He wanted control, she said quietly. Over me. Over everything. Her fingers lightly tapped the paper again. Now he gets to sit in a cell and watch it all disappear. For the first time, I felt something close to a smile. Not because of what he lost, but because of what she took back. Her life. I was scared for a long time, she admitted. I stayed quiet. I waited. I nodded. She shook her head slightly. No. It was timing. That word stayed with me. Timing. She didn't fight him when he was strongest. She didn't scream when no one would listen. She waited. And when the moment came, she ended everything with one note. One decision. One move. I used to think revenge meant hurting someone, she said almost to herself. And now, I asked. She looked at me calm and steady. Now I think it means letting them face everything they thought they'd never lose. Silence settled between us again. Not heavy this time. Peaceful. She gathered her papers, sliding them neatly into her bag. I won't be coming back, she said. I nodded. That's a good thing? She paused for a second. You know, if you hadn't read that note. I did, I said gently. She smiled. And this time it reached her eyes. Then she turned and walked out. No one followed her. No one watched her. No one controlled where she went. And as the door closed behind her, I realized something. The most powerful revenge isn't loud. It doesn't need an audience. It doesn't even need a second chance. Sometimes, it starts with fear, grows in silence, and ends with everything quietly taken. I thought that was the end of her story, but a month later, I heard his name again, and this time, it wasn't just about a gun. It was bigger. Much bigger. I was on my lunch break, scrolling absent-mindedly when a headline caught my eye. Local arrest connected to financial fraud investigation. I almost skipped past it until I saw his photo. Same cold eyes. Same controlled expression. But this time there was no control left. I sat up straight, my heart starting to pound again. Just like that day at the counter. He wasn't just being charged for the weapon anymore. There were multiple counts now: fraud, identity manipulation, illegal transfers. The kind of charges that don't disappear with a good lawyer or a lucky break. The kind that stay. I didn't need to guess how it happened. I already knew. A few days later, she came back one last time. Not to my counter this time, just inside the bank. I saw her near the entrance, talking to my manager. Papers in her hand again. But fewer this time, cleaner. Final. When she noticed me, she walked over. "You saw it?" she asked quietly. I nodded. "Yeah." She let out a slow breath, like she'd been holding it for years. "It's done." There was something different about the way she said it. Not relief. Closure. "They froze everything," she continued. "Every account tied to him. Every hidden transfer. They traced it all." I leaned slightly closer. "That list you made?" She gave a small nod. It opened the door. Of course it did. People like him don't fall because of one mistake. They fall because someone finally connects all of them. "He kept everything scattered," she said. "Different places. But patterns don't lie." Her voice was calm, steady, like someone explaining something simple. But I could feel the weight behind it. All those nights he thought I wasn't paying attention. She added softly, "I was learning everything." I felt a quiet kind of respect settle in my chest. Not loud admiration. Something deeper. "You didn't just escape," I said. "You dismantled him." She didn't smile. She just looked at me and said, "I made sure he couldn't do this to anyone else." That hit harder than anything else. Because this was never about revenge in the way people imagine it. There was no shouting, no confrontation, no dramatic moment where she told him off. He never even saw it coming. "That day at the bank," she said after a pause, "he thought he had already won." I remembered the way he stood outside. Calm, waiting, certain. "And you?" I asked. "I already knew it was over," she replied. A silence followed. But this one felt complete. No loose ends. No unfinished thoughts. Just an ending that had finally caught up to the beginning. "They're saying he could be facing years," I said carefully. She nodded once. I heard. No excitement, no satisfaction, just acceptance. "And you?" I asked. "What happens now?" For the first time, she hesitated. Not out of fear. Out of unfamiliarity. "I don't know," she admitted. "I've never really planned past survival." That made sense. When your whole life is about getting through the next day, you don't think about next year. But then, slowly, she said, "I think I'll start small." I smiled a little. That's how everything real starts. She looked around the bank, the counters, the lines, the quiet routine. "This place," she said. It was the first time I felt like I had a choice. I didn't say anything. Because I knew what she meant. She reached into her bag and pulled out something small. That same folded note. "The one that started everything. I kept it," she said. "To remind myself." "Of him?" I asked. She shook her head. "Off me?" That stayed with me. Not the fear. Not the danger. Her. The version of herself who, even in the worst moment of her life, still found a way to think, to plan, to act. "I almost didn't hand it to you," she said quietly. "I was scared you wouldn't read it." I looked at her. "But you did anyway." She nodded. "That was the real risk." We stood there for a moment, neither of us needing to say anything else. Then she folded the note carefully and put it back in her bag. "I won't need it anymore," she said. And this time I believed her. She turned to leave, then paused. "One more thing," she added. I raised an eyebrow slightly. "Hay always said I was nothing without him," she said. I felt my jaw tighten a little. "And now?" I asked. She met my eyes, calm, steady, unshaken. "No, he has nothing without me. No anger, no bitterness, just truth." And somehow that made it even stronger. She walked out of the bank one last time. No fear, no looking back, just forward. And as the door closed behind her, I realized something I hadn't fully understood before. The most satisfying revenge isn't about making someone feel your pain. It's about removing yourself so completely that they're left alone with everything they tried to take from you. And nothing. I thought I'd never hear from her again. But 3 months later, a letter arrived at the bank with my name on it. No return address. Just my name, written neatly across the front. For a second, my chest tightened. Old instincts. Old memories. That moment at the counter flashing back like it had just happened yesterday. I opened it slowly. Inside was a single sheet of paper. And a photo. The paper was short. I finally slept without fear last night. That was it. No long explanation. No details. Just one sentence. But somehow it said everything. I looked at the photo next. It wasn't anything dramatic. No celebration. No big moment. Just her. Sitting by a window, sunlight falling across her face. A cup of coffee in her hands. No tension in her shoulders. No fear in her eyes. Peace. Real peace. I didn't realize how rare that was until I saw it. At the bottom of the photo, a small handwritten line. You gave me time. I used it. I sat there for a long moment, holding that picture. Because I knew what that time really meant. It wasn't just the few minutes we stalled at the counter. It was the space she needed to take her life back. The chance to turn fear into something else. Something stronger. Later that day, my manager called me into her office. They finalized his case, she said. I already knew where this was going. He's not getting out anytime soon. I nodded slowly. There was no sense of victory in me. Just quiet understanding. Everything she reported checked out. My manager added. Every account, every transfer, every detail. Of course it did. She hadn't acted out of panic. She had built everything carefully, piece by piece, long before that day. He lost all financial access, she continued. Assets frozen. Properties under investigation. I thought about the way she had stood in front of me that second time. Calm. Certain. Like the outcome was never in doubt. He used control as his weapon, my manager said. Turns out it was also his weakness. That stayed with me. Because it was true. He thought control meant power. But it also meant he left a trail. And she followed it. Every step. When I got home that night, I looked at the photo again. There was something almost unbelievable about it. Not because it was extraordinary, but because it wasn't. It was normal. And for someone like her, normal was everything. Days passed, then weeks. The story faded from the news. The bank moved on. New customers, new routines, new faces. But I kept that photo. Not out of attachment, out of reminder. Because every now and then, someone would walk up to my counter with that same quiet tension in their eyes. That same forced calm. And I'd remember. Sometimes, the biggest moments don't look big at all. Sometimes, they're just a piece of paper slid across a counter. One afternoon, months later, I saw someone hesitate in line. A woman, nervous, distracted, her hands gripping her bag just a little too tightly. For a second, I felt that same stillness inside me. That same awareness. When she stepped up to my counter, I met her eyes. Take your time, I said gently. She looked surprised. Like she didn't expect to be seen. Really seen. She started, then stopped. I didn't rush her. Didn't look away. Didn't break that quiet space. Because I understood something now that I didn't fully understand before. People don't always ask for help out loud. Sometimes, they test the silence first. She didn't hand me a note. She didn't say anything unusual. Just completed her transaction and left. But as she walked out, she glanced back once. And in that look, there was a question. A possibility. A maybe. And that was enough. Because not every story ends in one moment. Some just begin there. I went back to my routine, the soft hum of the bank surrounding me. But something had changed. Not in the world. In me. I didn't just see numbers anymore. I saw pauses. Hesitations. The things people don't say. And I paid attention. Because I knew now, the most powerful moves aren't loud. They don't need attention. They don't need recognition. Sometimes. They're just a quiet decision made in the middle of fear. That changes everything that comes after.